Scientists searched 3,800 natural compounds for the one that could fight type 2 diabetes the way a drug does. The winner wasn't a rare herb from the other side of the world, it was broccoli. But here's the part almost no one says out loud: broccoli isn't even the vegetable on this list with the strongest proof. And the one most videos crown as number one has the thinnest evidence of all four. If you're over 60 and living with high blood sugar, the process quietly slipping inside your body is probably not the one the internet keeps shouting about. So today I'm ranking four grocery store vegetables by how strong the human proof actually is. And I'll tell you which one belongs in your cart tonight. I've spent years in emergency medicine, and I'll tell you what I almost never saw come through those doors. I never saw anyone in a crisis because they ate too many vegetables. Not once, ever. What I saw over and over was the slow version. The person whose morning numbers crept up for a decade while nobody handed them a plan they could actually follow. High blood sugar rarely arrives with sirens. It arrives quietly, one reading at a time. And by the time someone feels it, a lot of damage is already done. I saw the end of that story again and again. The wound on the foot that wouldn't heal. The kidney's already struggling. And almost every time, there had been years of quiet warning nobody acted on because nobody explained what the warning meant. This video is me explaining it early while you still have every option on the table. So before I start, do me one small favor. Tell me in the comments how old you are and which of these four you already eat. I read them, and they tell me exactly what to make next. Now here's the reframe, and it matters more than any single vegetable. Most videos rank foods by how exciting the mechanism sounds. Roots from far away, compounds with long names. I'm going to rank these four by how strong the human evidence actually is, because that flips the order completely, and it changes which one you should trust with your own body. But before the ranking, I need you to understand something that will make all four make sense. Stay with me on this, because it's a part most people never get told. High blood sugar is not one problem. It's at least four different problems wearing the same face. Think of it like water getting into a basement. It could be the windows, it could be a crack in the wall, it could be the drains backing up, or it could be the ground outside holding too much water, same wet floor. Four different causes. And if you only fix the windows when the real problem is the drains, you stay wet. Your blood sugar works the same way. Here are the four doors. Door one is how fast sugar gets in from your food. Eat something that breaks down quickly, and sugar floods your blood all at once. Slow that entry down, and the flood becomes a gentle rise. Door two is how well your cells hear insulin. Insulin is the hormone that knocks on your cells and says, open up, let this sugar in. When your cells stop answering that knock, sugar piles up in the blood with nowhere to go. Doctors call that insulin resistance. Door three is your own liver. This surprises people. Your liver makes sugar too, all on its own, even when you haven't eaten a thing. In type 2 diabetes, that liver runs overtime, dripping extra sugar into your blood while you sleep. That's why your morning number can be high, even though you ate nothing overnight. And door four is your gut. The bacteria living in your intestines quietly shape how your whole body handles sugar. When that inner garden gets thin and unbalanced, your blood sugar suffers, and almost nobody checks it. Four doors. Now, here's the beautiful part. Each of these four vegetables works on a different door. That's the real reason to eat all of them, not just one. And it's the reason the ranking is going to surprise you. Let me introduce you to someone before we start counting. Gary, 66, a retired mail carrier from just outside Kansas City, 30 years walking a route, rain and snow, then a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes that didn't shock his doctor one bit. Here's Gary's real problem, and it's the reason his story runs through this whole video. Gary's kidney numbers meant his doctor was careful about metformin, the standard first medication. Gary is in the 1 in 5 who can't lean on that drug the normal way. He sat in that exam room feeling like the main tool had been quietly taken off his table. Hold on to Gary. He comes back, and what he ended up doing is coming up, before I count them down, one more thing, because it explains why you've been misled. Why does almost every video get this ranking backward? Follow the incentive. The most clicked health videos are the ones that feel like a secret. A humble bean, nobody can dress up as magic, but an exotic spear with a strange sounding compound, that sells. So the rarest, least proven vegetable gets crowned number one, and the workhorse with a real clinical trial behind it gets buried at the bottom. It's not a lie exactly, it's just excitement standing in for evidence, and you're the one who pays for it because you spend your effort on the wrong door. I'm doing the opposite today. Strongest proof first, least proven last. Even though it's the less exciting order to watch, your body doesn't care what's exciting. It cares what works. Number one, for strength of proof, legumes, lentils, chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans, split peas. And I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. Beans? The boring bag on the bottom shelf? Stay with me, because pound for pound, dollar for dollar, this is the single best proven food on this entire list. Legumes work on door one, how fast sugar gets in, and they do it better than almost anything you can buy. Here's why. A bean is built like a little armored package. The sugar inside is wrapped in fiber and in something called resistant starch, a starch your body genuinely cannot break down. So instead of your gut ripping it apart in minutes, it lets it through slowly, a trickle at a time. Picture a gate at the top of a crowded staircase. Without the gate, everyone stampedes down at once. With the gate, they file through a few at a time. No stampede, no spike, just a slow, manageable rise you can actually handle. But legumes do one more thing, and this is the part that genuinely amazes me. Researchers gave it a name decades ago, the second meal effect. Eat beans at lunch, and they steady your blood sugar hours later at dinner. A meal you haven't even eaten yet. Your gut is still slowly working through those beans, still releasing that trickle, still keeping the gate closed. One good decision at noon quietly protects you at 6 o'clock. Almost no other food does that. Now, the evidence. And this is why legumes sit at number one, not number four. A research team at the University of Toronto ran a real randomized trial, not a survey, not a guess, a trial. 121 adults with type 2 diabetes, half of them added 1 cup of legumes a day. After 3 months, their A1C, the number that captures your average blood sugar over about 3 months, dropped by half a point. Now, half a point might not sound like much. Let me tell you why it's a big deal. First, that's the kind of drop doctors get excited about from a medication, from beans. And second, here's the detail almost everyone skips over. The other group in that study wasn't eating junk. They were already on a healthy, high fiber diet. The beans still beat them. So this wasn't beans versus a bad diet. It was beans versus already good. And the beans won. There's more. Their blood pressure fell too by about 4.5 points. Their heart risk dropped. Read that again. One food, lower blood sugar and lower blood pressure and lower heart risk all at once from something you can buy for pocket change. And there's a bonus most people never hear. Legumes also nudge your cholesterol down, and because they're so filling, they quietly help with weight, which loops right back to better blood sugar. One cheap food pulling 4 or 5 levers at the same time. That is rare. That is why the trial impressed the researchers so much. And this is exactly why legumes matter more after 60, not less. Here's a fact that gets buried. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in people with diabetes, not the diabetes itself. In the end, the heart. And that risk climbs with every passing decade. Legumes are one of the only foods on earth that push on your blood sugar and your heart in the very same bite, in the very same bowl. So here's your protocol, and I want to be specific because vague advice is useless advice. Start with half a cup a day, added to a meal you already make, not a whole new recipe. Half a cup into the soup, into the salad, onto the plate. If canned, rinse them well under the tap to wash off about a third of the sodium. Dried lentils need no soaking at all and cook in under 20 minutes. Work up toward that 1 cup a day over a couple of weeks. Now, I have to be honest with you about the one thing nobody warns you about: gas. Yes. When you suddenly add beans, your gut bacteria throw a small party. And you'll notice here's what most people get wrong: they feel that, decide beans don't agree with them, and quit on day 3. That's the mistake. That bloating is temporary. It's your gut adjusting, not rejecting. Go slow. A quarter cup for the first week, half a cup the second, a full cup by week 3 or 4. Rinse canned beans well, and within a couple of weeks, the gut settles and the discomfort fades while the blood sugar benefit stays. Push through that first week, and you're through the hard part. Quit in that first week, and you'll never see the payoff that was 2 weeks away. Now, if legumes have the strongest proof, this next one has the most extraordinary story. This is the broccoli I told you about in the first 10 seconds. And this is where Gary comes back. Number 2, broccoli. Remember door 3? Your own liver dripping sugar into your blood overnight? Broccoli is the one that works on that door. And the way scientists found it is almost hard to believe. A research team at Lund University in Sweden did something clever. Instead of testing plants one by one, they read the genetic fingerprint of type 2 diabetes, the exact pattern of genes that go wrong in the disease. Then they fed a computer a library of 3,800 compounds and asked one question: which of these reverses that pattern? Which one pushes the disease signature backward? The computer's top answer wasn't a pharmaceutical. It was sulforaphane, a compound packed into broccoli, and especially into broccoli sprouts and Brussels sprouts. Here's the mechanism, and it's the reason this became Gary's answer. In type 2 diabetes, the liver overproduces sugar. Even when you've eaten nothing, it keeps dripping glucose into your blood like a kitchen faucet that won't fully shut off. Drip, drip all night long. That's a huge driver of the high number you see the moment you wake up. And this explains something that confuses a lot of people. You go to bed with a decent number, eat nothing for 8 hours, and wake up higher than when you fell asleep. How? You didn't eat a thing. It wasn't your dinner. It was your liver working the night shift, pouring sugar in while you slept. Doctors even have a name for the early morning surge. So if your fasting number is your stubborn one, the one that won't come down, door 3 is very likely your door, and this is the vegetable for it. Now, metformin, the standard drug, works mainly by tightening that faucet. And here's the remarkable part: sulforaphane tightens the same faucet, but through a completely different door inside the cell. It switches on your body's own antioxidant defense system, and that system tells the liver to ease off its sugar production. Think of that defense system as a cleanup crew your cells already employ but rarely call in. Sulforaphane rings the bell and puts them to work. And here's a detail from the research that I find genuinely hopeful. That same cleanup pathway appears to offer some protection to the nerves and kidneys, the very tissues that diabetes damages over the years. So you may be doing more than lowering a number. You may be protecting the parts of you that high sugar quietly wears down. Let me show you how close it came to the drug. In animals, sulforaphane dropped blood sugar by about 23% in 4 weeks. Metformin, in the very same experiment, managed 24%. 23 versus 24. Let that sink in. A vegetable compound nearly shoulder to shoulder with one of the most prescribed medications on the planet. Then came the human trial. Real people, not a petri dish. 97 people with type 2 diabetes took a concentrated broccoli sprout extract for 12 weeks. In the ones whose sugar was most out of control, fasting, glucose, and A1C dropped compared to a placebo. And a follow-up study extended the finding to people with prediabetes too. Now, here is why this is not just a fascinating science story. It's a lifeline for a specific group of people. Roughly 15% of people with type 2 diabetes cannot take metformin because of their kidneys. Another 5 to 10% stop taking it because of stomach trouble. Add that up. That's 1 in 5, maybe 1 in 4, who can't rely on the standard drug. That is, Gary, That is a lot of you watching right now. And sulforaphane works on the very same faucet through a route that doesn't lean on the kidneys the way metformin does. So picture Gary again sitting in that office feeling like his main tool was gone. When he learned about this, something shifted. Here was a way to push on the exact mechanism his doctor wanted to target using food without the drug he couldn't safely take. So he started broccoli with most dinners, a jar of broccoli sprouts kept in the fridge, a handful thrown onto eggs and salads. And I want to be completely straight with you about what happened next, because this is the moment these videos usually lie to you. Gary did not reverse his diabetes overnight. He did not throw away his glucose meter. What happened was slower and more real than that. Over about 2 months, alongside the beans he'd added and the walking he already did, his morning fasting numbers eased downward, not to normal, down. His doctor was pleased and adjusted his plan carefully. Gary's own words to me were simple. He said, "For the first time since the diagnosis, I feel like I'm doing something, not just waiting." That's the honest version. Not a cure, not a miracle. A man who found a lever he could actually pull between doctor visits on the exact problem he thought he was locked out of. And here's your realistic expectation, because I won't sell you fantasy. If broccoli helps you, it helps gradually over weeks as one part of a bigger picture. Some people notice their morning numbers soften, some barely move. What matters is the direction and whether you stick with it long enough to see it. Now, one caveat I genuinely owe you. That trial used a concentrated extract, far more sulforaphane than a plate of broccoli delivers. So don't expect a single dinner of broccoli to act like a drug. What you can do is eat it often and load up on sprouts, because broccoli sprouts carry many times more of the compound than the grown up florets. And here's a cooking rule that actually matters: steam it lightly, do not boil it to death. Boiling leaches out and destroys the very thing you're eating it for. And one small trick that surprises people: sprinkle a pinch of mustard powder over cooked broccoli. Mustard contains an enzyme that reactivates sulforaphane production, so you get more of the compound from the same florets. Free chemistry right there on your plate. Now, the last two, their evidence is real, but it's a step softer than the first two, and I'd be doing you a disservice to pretend otherwise, because honesty is the whole point of this ranking. Number 3, leafy greens, spinach, kale, Swiss chard, collards. Greens work on door 2. How well your cells hear insulin, and they do it through a mineral almost nobody talks about: magnesium. First, the simple part: greens are almost all water and fiber, with barely any usable carbohydrate. So they bring that gate on the staircase effect, slowing the whole meal down. But the real edge is the magnesium. Here's why it matters. Your cells need magnesium to properly hear insulin's knock. Remember insulin, the hormone tapping on the door saying, "Let this sugar in"? When you're low on magnesium, your cells go a little deaf to that knock. The insulin is knocking, but nobody's answering. So the sugar stays out in the blood. Top up the magnesium, and your cells start hearing the knock again. And the evidence here is genuinely strong for what it is. Pooled across more than 500,000 people, researchers found that for every extra 100 milligrams of magnesium a day, the risk of developing type 2 diabetes was about 14% lower. 500,000 people, 14% per 100 milligrams. And leafy greens are one of the richest, cheapest sources of magnesium you can put on a plate. But here's where I have to be honest, because this is exactly why greens are number 3 and not number 1. Most of that magnesium evidence is what we call association. It shows that people who eat more greens tend to get less diabetes. It does not prove, the way a controlled trial does, that adding greens treats diabetes you already have. It's powerful for prevention. It's less nailed down for reversal. And you deserve to know the difference instead of being told every vegetable is a miracle. Why does this lean on you harder after 60? Here's the piece nobody mentions. After a meal, most of your blood sugar gets pulled out of your blood and stored inside your muscle. Muscle is a sponge for sugar. But starting around age 50, you steadily lose muscle year after year unless you fight for it. Less muscle means a smaller sponge, less room for sugar to go. So it lingers in your blood longer. The magnesium in greens helps the muscle you've kept stay sensitive to insulin, so the sponge you have left keeps working. Your protocol here is almost effortless. Add a handful of greens to a meal you already eat. Frozen spinach works just as well as fresh, holds its magnesium, and costs a fraction of the price. You do not have to choke down salad. Wilt them into your eggs, drop them into soup, fold them into rice as it finishes cooking. Cheap, easy, done. But I owe you two safety notes here because greens interact with real things. First, if you take warfarin, a common blood thinner, do not suddenly triple your greens. Greens are loaded with vitamin K, and vitamin K directly affects how warfarin works. You do not have to avoid greens. You just keep the amount steady from week to week, and you tell your doctor what you're doing so they can check your levels. Second, if you've ever had kidney stones, know that spinach in particular is high in oxalates, which can feed certain stones. Rotate in kale or collards, drink plenty of water, and mention it to your doctor. Small cautions, but you deserve to hear them, not discover them. Number 4, asparagus. And I am putting it dead last on purpose because most videos put it first. And the honest truth is, the human proof simply isn't there yet. Asparagus works on door 4, your gut. And the idea behind it is genuinely fascinating. Asparagus is rich in inulin, prebiotic fiber. And I want you to hear that word clearly. Inulin, not insulin. Inulin with a U, they sound almost the same and they are completely different things. Inulin is a fiber that your body can't digest at all. So it passes untouched all the way down into your large intestine where it becomes food for specific good bacteria. Those bacteria ferment it and produce a compound called butyrate. And butyrate appears to improve how sensitive your cells are to insulin and to calm inflammation in your gut lining. Picture your gut bacteria as a garden. Inulin is fertilizer for exactly the plants you want to grow. But here is the honest picture, and it's why asparagus sits at number 4. This rests mostly on small studies, often using concentrated asparagus extract, and on animal research rather than large trials with the vegetable itself on real people over time. Early research suggests a genuine effect on fasting sugar. But early is the key word. This is a promising lead, not a settled case, and I won't dress it up as more than that. Still, there's a real reason it interests me for older adults specifically. After 60, the diversity of your gut bacteria naturally thins out. The very strains that produce butyrate tend to fade, so feeding them may matter more with age, not less, precisely when the standard advice ignores your gut entirely. So eat asparagus if you enjoy it, roast it, steam it, stir fry it. The fiber holds up to heat. 3 or 4 spears, a couple of times a week, is a fine start. And the same gentle rule from the beans applies here. Inulin is a fiber your gut bacteria feast on, so if you add a lot at once, you'll feel it. Start small, let your gut adjust over a week or two, and the bloating settles while the benefit stays. Just go in knowing you're betting on an exciting early lead, not a proven treatment, so now you have all 4. But knowing the foods is not the same as getting the result. And I've watched people do everything right and still get nowhere because of 3 mistakes that quietly cancel the whole effort. Let me save you from them. Mistake 1, eating these vegetables, then drowning the meal in the very thing they're fighting. You add a beautiful cup of lentils, and then you pour a tall glass of orange juice next to it, or finish with white bread or a sweet dessert. The beans are holding the gate at the top of the staircase, and the juice is a second staircase they can't guard. The vegetables slow the sugar from your food. They cannot rescue a meal that's flooding you with fast sugar from somewhere else. So pair them with the change that matters. Cut the liquid sugar, the soda, the juice, the sweet coffee. That single swap does more than any vegetable, and it lets the vegetables actually do their job. Mistake 2, overcooking the medicine right out of the food. This one breaks my heart because people are trying so hard. They buy the broccoli, then boil it into gray mush. They cook the life out of the greens, heat and water, pull the beneficial compounds straight out, steam lightly, saute quickly. Eat some of it closer to raw when you can. You bought the benefit. Don't pour it down the drain with the cooking water. Mistake three, and this is the big one, treating this like a switch instead of a direction. People try all four vegetables for 1 week, see their meter hasn't magically dropped, and quit. Here's the truth: your A1C reflects about 3 months of blood sugar. 3 months. You cannot read the results of a food change in 3 days any more than you can see a garden grow by staring at it overnight. The people who win here are not the ones who go perfect for a week. They're the ones who go boring and repeatable for a season. Boring and repeatable beats perfect and abandoned every single time. Say that back to yourself the next time you're tempted to quit. Now, let me make this dead simple. Here is what all four look like in one completely normal day without turning your life upside down. Breakfast: scramble 2 eggs and throw a handful of spinach in at the end. That's door two handled before you've even had coffee. Lunch: a bowl with half a cup to a cup of lentils or beans, whatever you like, maybe over some greens. That's door one. And thanks to the second meal effect, you've just quietly protected your dinner to dinner. A plate of lightly steamed broccoli next to whatever you're already having, with a pinch of mustard powder on top. Add a few spears of asparagus a couple nights a week. That's doors three and four. That's it. Eggs and spinach. A bean bowl, broccoli at dinner, nothing exotic, nothing expensive. Four doors, covered in a day that looks almost exactly like the one you already live. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, so let me say it out loud. You're thinking, it's just vegetables. How much can this really do? Fair question. And on its own, no single vegetable here is a drug. But that's not the game. Gary didn't eat one. He stacked the ones with real evidence, kept them boring and repeatable, and pushed on three different doors at once. The whole is bigger than any single piece. Some of you are thinking, I'm too old for this to matter now. I want you to hear me clearly on this. Your body does not stop responding to food at 70 or 80. The studies I described included older adults, and the mechanisms, the gate, the sponge, the faucet, the garden, they all keep working. It is genuinely never too late to change the direction you're heading. And some of you are thinking, I've heard all this before, maybe, but I bet you were never told which one has the strongest proof, why your morning number comes from your liver, or that the vegetable everyone crowns as number one has the weakest evidence of the bunch. That's the part most people miss. And now you have it. And a few of you are thinking something more practical. I'm too busy, or I don't really cook. I hear you, and I built the plan around that. Canned beans, rinsed, take 30 seconds. Frozen spinach goes straight from the bag into the pan. Frozen broccoli steams in the microwave in 4 minutes. None of this asks you to become a cook. It asks you to add one thing to meals you already eat. That's the whole job. So here's your one concrete step, and it's a good one, especially here in this country. At your next visit, ask for 3 numbers and write them down: your A1C, your fasting glucose, and your EGFR. That third one is your kidney number, and it's the number that decides whether metformin is even an option for you, the exact number that shaped Gary's whole story. If you're on Medicare, here's something most people never use. Your annual wellness visit costs you nothing. No copay, no deductible, and most people never book it. That visit is exactly where you ask for these numbers. And before any test, it never hurts to ask the office one question: is this covered? That one question saves people a world of grief. And one thing I need you to hear very clearly, because it's a matter of safety. If you take insulin or a pill that lowers your blood sugar, these foods are active enough that stacking them can push your numbers lower than you expect. That is a good problem. but it's one your doctor needs to help you manage so your doses can come down safely instead of dropping you too low by accident. So never stop or change a prescribed medication on your own. Bring this video, bring these foods to your doctor, and let food and medicine work together. That's the goal, not one replacing the other, both pulling in the same direction. One more thing so you know where to aim first. If your stubborn number is the morning one, the fasting reading before you've eaten, that points to your liver. Door 3 and broccoli is your best starting bet. If your numbers spike after meals, that's doors 1 and 2. So beans and greens are where you begin. You don't have to guess forever. Your own meter and the numbers you ask your doctor for will tell you which door is loudest for you. Now, how will you actually know if any of this is working? Because you can't feel your blood sugar, and I don't want you guessing, here's a simple tool. Pick one number and track it. Your fasting glucose first thing in the morning. At the same time is the easiest. Write it down for 2 weeks before you change anything so you know your starting point. Then add the foods and keep writing it down. You're not looking for a perfect drop day to day. Blood sugar bounces around for 100 reasons. You're looking for the trend line over weeks to bend gently downward. That's the signal, that's the direction. And your A1C 3 months in is the real scorecard. Ask for it. Compared to the last one. That's how you'll know. So let me bring it all home. Here's your map. 4 doors. Pick one. 4 vegetables. Legumes, the strongest proof of all. Slowing sugar from your food and helping your heart in the same bowl. Broccoli, the compound science, chose over 3,000 others, quieting your own liver, and the answer for the 1 in 5 who can't take the standard drug, greens, rich in the magnesium your cells need to hear insulin, powerful for prevention, and asparagus, feeding the gut garden that thins with age, promising, but still early. And hear this, your body is still keeping the books at 60, at 70, at 80. Yours, not someone younger, yours. Every single thing you feed it is an entry in that ledger. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to start with one door and keep showing up. So tell me in the comments which door you're starting with and the single biggest thing that makes eating better feel hard for you. I read every one and I answer, if this helped, share it with one person who's managing their blood sugar. Not everyone, one person. The one who came to mind while you were watching. And if you want the next piece of this, my next video is on the single breakfast habit that quietly raises the morning blood sugar of millions of people without them ever knowing. You do not want to miss that one. I'll see you there.